Hello everybody and welcome back to Odin's Movie Blog. I am the critic who is a cynic, and today, oh boy, we've got a story that I have mentioned a few times on Twitter already because I was one of those persons where I was actually kind of going after Scarlett Johansson as well, because not because of me wanting a transgendered actor to play a transgendered role, but because it's someone like Scarlett Johansson who's a full-blown SJW personality who tries to preach everything and then has taken several roles that just go against that. I mean, first you had all the backlash that she got for playing the white lead in Ghost in the Shell, which was meant to be an Asian role, and you got a lot of backlash for that. She still went ahead with the role anyway, and then the same thing was going on with this film, and I thought, oh, you know what, she's just going to keep going because that's just what they do, but she's actually now stepping out of the role because of a lot of backlash, and so I've got some mixed feelings on this because I'm glad that she's finally practicing what she's preaching, but at the end of the day, I still don't think that people are quite understanding everything that's going on, because there's an even bigger issue at play when it comes to this story. And I'm going to tell y'all right now, there might be some of you who might get really pissed off by the things I'm going to say, the things I'm going to talk about, but just remember, you know, I'm coming from a position, having a master's degree in theology, you know, in the Catholic Church, and so therefore I have a lot of opinions on this, but I want to make sure that they are fully understood, and I want to make sure that they are fully fleshed out. So I'm going to be talking about this article, but I also kind of just want to make very clear my position on this, and also why I think it's so important for us to be honest about this, because I understand, and rather I feel that in today's world, if you try and say anything, you're immediately painted as transphobic, as sexist, as racist, etc., when in reality, you're not really any of those things, because what do those things actually mean? It means you hate a particular race. It means you hate a particular gender. It means that you hate a particular sexual orientation, and that's not where I'm coming from. That's not the position that I'm coming from at all. I mean, I have a lot of friends, and I know that this is like kind of the typical argument saying, oh, you have a lot of friends, so it means everything's okay. It's like, no, but it's honest. Like, I love my friends. I don't care what they do in their spare time. I don't care, you know, what they believe, because again, I have friends from various political denominations as well, and at the end of the day, I don't care about those things as long as they're not doing harm to me or anyone else. At the end of the day, they can be, you know, do whatever they want. But this is the biggest problem. This is the bigger problem that I'm going to address in this article, is that a lot of these issues are starting to affect other people and not just these individual persons. So let's just dive into it real quick. So as you see, the headline says, transgender community praises Scarlett Johansson for bailing on rub and tug. Well, first let me say, when you have a movie titled Rub and Tug, and it's about a transgendered man or a transgender woman, whatever it is, oh man, you already know that you're going to have a good time. I'm sorry, but like, that is just a terrible name for a movie. Oh my goodness. I mean, there's been some really bad movies, but that is a terrible name. But also, I think this already I can make a point. You have a movie called Rub and Tug about the transgender community. You had a very big star being a part of that, playing the lead character. Now she stepped down, and you're cheering for this, saying, oh, now we're praising her for doing this. But at the end of the day, does that really help your cause? Does that really help your movie? Wasn't this a movie that was supposed to bring these issues into the limelight? What better way to do that than to hire a high-profile actress to bring those issues into light? Instead, what you did, and again, I agree with you, because I think that you can't just be SJW and then take movie roles that take roles away from other people. Again, I think that's just hypocritical. So I understand y'all from that perspective, but when it comes to this, since that's not really what y'all wanted, y'all cared more about representation, because again, that's a huge word in the SJW community, is representation. That's all you care about. But at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're really hurting your cause, because imagine this. Imagine a movie starring Scarlett Johansson that looks like it's going to be a very independent film, not make a lot of money already, but you have the name Scarlett Johansson attached to the project. That's going to bring a lot of views, that's going to bring a lot of eyeballs, a lot of ears, and also a lot of money to that project to help fund other projects talking about similar stories. But now that she's gone, who are you going to bring in? I can't think of any transgender actor who is very famous in Hollywood. Now, there might be some people who are part of the community who say, oh, well, this person, but I'm sorry, you cannot tell me that there's a transgendered actor or actress who is going to be a huge box office draw that people are going to see as attached to the project and say, oh my goodness, I want to see that, unless you're already a part of the SJW community in the first place. Like, I just don't understand that. And also, I'm not trying to say that anyone who's a part of the, you know, LGBTQAIQP, whatever the words are these days, that all of them are SJWs, because again, I know a lot of people who aren't a part of that community, but at the end of the day, there are a lot of people who are part of that community. Again, I would say the majority of those communities, it seems at least the majority of the vocal members of the communities tend to be a part of the SJW community. But let's just go on. So again, Rub and Tug will be looking for a new actor to take on the role of Dante Tex Gill after Scarlett Johansson decided to leave the project. Again, I think that's going to hurt the project in the long run, and it's going to hurt your message going forward. Again, we can have different opinions on whether that's a good thing thing or not, but if the whole point of this movie, the whole point of this was to get the message out there, to try and make movies about transgender persons more accessible, this is not the way to do it. It's not to attack someone who is for your cause, who's going to bring eyes to your project just to, go away into obscurity, because now no one's going to go see this movie. I already wasn't planning on seeing this movie in the first place, but once they do finally announce, oh, so-and-so is now playing this character and she's a transgendered person, okay, well, I don't know who that person is, and I just don't care about this project in the first place, so why would I go see it now? All right, so it goes on to say, the transgender community has applauded Johansson's decision to leave the movie after tearing the actress to shreds for taking the role in the first place. It was announced earlier this month that Scarlett Johansson was going to play a transgendered man in Robin Tug, which saw a tremendous amount of backlash. Again, I can understand that because she's claiming to believe in certain things, and she's not really living up to that. I can understand being critical of a person for not being consistent. I can understand that. I can respect that. There's common sense to that perspective. No, you can criticize someone, you should criticize someone who says one thing and then does another, who doesn't act upon their principles. That makes sense to me. But at the end of the day, you cannot ignore the ramifications that this is going to have on your project and on your movie. However, that controversy was nothing compared to the backlash that occurred after Johansson released a statement defending her casting. So Scarlett Johansson revealed yesterday that she was exiting Robin Tug, leading to praise for the from the transgender community. Dozens of transgender actors, filmmakers, artists, and activists have voiced their support for Johansson after a statement. I love how it's dozens. So I love how it's like people always try and play it up as this huge community, and yet even this article from MovieWeb, which we already know is a garbage to your website, won't even say hundreds or thousands. We'll just say dozens. And that sounds about right. That sounds about fair, because that's how small that community is. Again, you had someone who was willing to play this part who was a very high-profile actress, and now who are you going to get? One of the dozens of unknown transgender actors and actresses out there? I'm sorry, but you're not really helping your cause in the long run. And so it goes on and says, Rain Valdez, an actress and producer, was moved to tears by Johansson's decision to leave and said, it says a lot about Scarlett Johansson that actually makes me a little emotional because it's not an easy industry for trans women. It's not an easy industry for trans men. Well, there's a lot of reasons why that is the case and why people are still not really jumping aboard that train. Again, I know a lot of people who are. I'm not one of those persons. I'm going to get to that at the very end of the video. Actress Alexandra Gray, so actor Alexander, again, I don't know, talked about the struggles that transgender actors go through in the entertainment industry. She also touched on Scarlett Johansson's original statement that defended her casting Robin Tug. Johansson's first statement directed detractors to look into the roles that Jared Leto, Jeffrey Tambor, and other cis actors have taken and won awards for. The fact that they're using cis actors just frustrates me, because how many genders are there now? How many identifications now? It's just like, it's never ending. That's the problem with this whole movement, is that there is no defined expectation. There is no defined terms. It changes every day. I could feel like I'm a waffle tomorrow and they'll create a pronoun for me, and I just don't think that's realistic. Now someone would say, oh, you're being ridiculous. I'm sorry, but if you had asked the LGBT community, actually, really the lesbian and gay community, like 20 years ago about this, a lot of them would not have been on board, because they would have said, no, this is not who we are. And guess what? Now this is where we are, and pretty soon we're going to see other groups being brought in, as we've seen other articles talk about that recently. So it goes on and says, we're broken. It hurts us sometimes when we see cis actors portraying our stories and winning Oscars and winning Emmys. And that is where I do want to stop, is on this phrase, because I don't think the person saying it just realizes how true this is. It says, we're broken. It hurts us sometimes when we see cis actors portraying our stories and winning Oscars and winning Emmys. I think the very first part of that is very important. We're broken. And I feel like this is something that a lot of people don't want to talk about when dealing with this subject. They don't want to talk about the fact that when it comes to someone who is born a man, who is born a woman, who thinks they are something other than that is a mental condition. And that is something that's going to piss off a lot of people. And hey, I understand that. But please know that does not mean I hate anyone who thinks that they are something that they aren't. I respect them. I love them. I have nothing against them personally. It's just that it doesn't make sense from a psychological perspective. I mean, think about this. Psychologists for years and years and years have looked at this as they should, which is as a psychological condition. Many still do. Now, there are some who are starting to change the narrative because they've started to be attacked and criticized and being called homophobic and so many other names. Transphobic is now the term out there. And the problem is it's just not based on reality. It comes from the same mindset. To think that you are a man or to think that you're a woman, it comes from the same mindset. It comes from the same dysphoria. It's called gender dysmorphia. It comes from the same dysmorphia that makes someone think they're too thin or they're too fat. Now, if I think I'm too thin, does that make me automatically thin? No. If I think I'm too fat, does that make me fat? No. So therefore, if I think I'm a woman, does it make me a woman? No, it does not. Again, if you use logic, if you use reason, it comes from the same mindset. It comes from the same argument. It comes from the same basis. It's the same reason why there are people out there who, because of dysmorphia, think they don't have an arm, but they do. Now, do those people just magically not have an arm and we should just accept, oh, you don't have an arm? Or to the person who's bulimic or who's anorexic, we should just say, oh, no, you think you are, and so therefore keep doing what you're doing. No one in their right mind would do that because it's seen as it should as a mental condition. Just look to the statistics out there that show just a high percentage of suicide rate, not only before any transition surgery, but also after surgery as well. So there really is nothing to back up these claims to say that this is something that is good. Now, there are some people out there who say, okay, but what about those persons? What about that 0.1% who are born somewhere in the middle, who are born intersex? And I look to them and I say, okay, but are most of the people who we're talking about intersex? No. They're not. Most of them are not. And also, out of that group of people who are intersex, who are born with both, one usually takes dominance over the other, and so it's pretty simple. Now, when we talk about those very rare circumstances, that's when we can have an honest discussion. But at the end of the day, what we're talking about there is sex and gender. Now, some people want to just, separate the terms, and in reality, you just can't do that. You just can't do that. Gender and sex have meant the same thing for a very long time. It wasn't until an SJW writer decided to say, oh, gender is a construct, and it started to just spin everything out of control. Here is the true statement. Sex is binary. You were born male or female, and that very, very rare 0.0001% chance that you're intersex, very rare. That's not the vast majority of the people who believe that they are trans, who believe that they are a woman when they're actually a man, or believe they're a man when they're actually a woman. Most of them are not intersex. Most of them have a mental condition and therefore should be helped in whatever way they can. Now, I'm not saying just throw them all into a mental institution. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that to encourage someone to get surgery, to encourage someone to act in a certain way is not helpful to them psychologically. Again, just until the stats say otherwise, I'm not going to be able to really back up or really be able to support that kind of mindset going forward. Now, what's really important about this as well is the fact that when we look to these people, they are people. And that is something I always try and say in my classes, and that's something that I always try and say in general, is that we cannot look at a person as an animal, as a thing, as an it. They are a human person. They are a man or a woman that we should look to in that way, that we should respect as such, that we should love as a human person. We should love the fact that they still have human dignity and should be treated as having human dignity. And that is where I stand on this. And that's why when it comes to this story in particular, tying everything together, when I see this story, it really does hurt my heart because there's a lot of honesty in this statement. We're broken. Yes, there is a brokenness within you. Now, it does not mean that you're, not worthy of life. It does not mean that you're not worthy of being respected. I'm not saying that at all. I am expressing love for you because I care about you and I care about your well-being. I'm concerned about you. If you're watching this and you're part of the trans community, I am concerned about people who believe that they are a man when they're actually a woman. Because here, at the end of the day, is the truest statement of all. Gender and sex are the same. However, sex and gender roles are what's different. Gender roles are constructed by society. That's why a woman doesn't just have to stay at home. That's why a woman doesn't have to just fit these certain gender stereotypes. That is true. Gender roles are fluid. Gender roles are indeed something that people can change. Sex, gender itself, is not. That's why gender and sex have been used interchangeably for decades. That's why most people saw them as the same word because they meant the same thing until one day someone decided to write, again, someone who was a feminist decided to write a book saying, oh, this is why gender and sex are different. They just made it up. They just made it up to fit their own narrative, and it's not actually based in reality itself. And so that's why when I look at this story, when I look at what's happened to Scarlett Johansson, I agree with this movement that she should not be acting a way that she's not. I do believe that she shouldn't say, I'm an SJW and I support trans rights, but then take on a role that maybe would be better played by a trans person. I agree with that. But at the end of the day, the discussion is just being lost on what's really important, and that's how do we help people who just don't understand or don't see for themselves the problems that might exist in their own life. And again, I'm not saying to show hatred towards anyone. I've never wanted to show anger or hatred or violence towards anyone for any reason. Again, if you live in your own world, if you live and you don't bother anyone else, again, I'm not going to try and tear you out of that community. I don't want anyone or any law to try and tear you out of that. But what I have a problem with is that now we see, and connecting this back, now we see this community, now we see this mindset infiltrating other society, or rather infiltrating further into our society, making us bigots if we don't agree with it. And that is what I have a problem with, because that is no longer you living in your own living your own life, not hurting anyone else. Again, it's one thing to live as a trans person and just be a person, just live a life. Then I want you to to call me this because I demand it, and if you don't, I will call you a hateful person, and I will go after your job. I will go after your status in society. I mean, that is what I have a problem with, because at that point, it is no longer someone just being themselves. At that point, they are going after somebody else, and I am never okay with that for any reason whatsoever. So I know that I went on a little bit of a tangent there, but what do y'all guys think? What do you think about this story in particular? What are your thoughts on Scarlett Johansson? Are you going to go see Rub and Tug? Please let me know in the comments below. I'd greatly appreciate that. If you like this content, please let me know that as well. I know this was a little bit different because I went a little bit more philosophical, theological in this video, and I know that this video is not going to be for everyone. I know that there are going to be a lot of people who might support my other videos who don't support this, and hey, I understand that. And I respect you, and I cannot wait to engage with you in the comments. I cannot wait to have those conversations, because that's what I want to try and do here. Is I want to create dialogue. I want to create a conversation without just people going into, oh, you're a racist, you're a sexist, you're transphobic, etc. When in reality, just those things aren't true. Again, if I was transphobic, I would say these people are evil and they're going to burn in hell. They're going to. I've never said that. I've never said that, and I never will, because I want to show love, and I want to show that they have dignity just like anyone else. All of us are human beings. We all have human dignity, no matter where we come from, no matter what we think, no matter what we do. We always still have human dignity. I think that's so important for us to understand, and that's why I think our conversation with each other need to be just better in general. So thank y'all so much for joining me today. Have a great day, and as always, God bless.